and boosting Trump back in 2016. But I also think there are Americans who are engaged in this kind of propaganda. And whether they should be civilly or even in some cases criminally charged is something that would be a better deterrence because than boosting Trump back in 2016.
Good morning. Rise and freedom. I'm Austin Peterson. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America show on the 4 Liberty Network. Good morning, Joni Rankin, Drew Van Runkle. Frickety, we miss you too, bud. John Rail, how you been? Relaxium McGroin, hope the groin is feeling quite relaxed. Cecilia, counting down the days till we hang out in D.C. together. What's up? Caleb Vanderfeldt, Quest Fanning. Gonna see you too. Floby Tenderson, Drew Van Runkle, Brad Beckman, Andy Opperman. We're all just hanging out here in the chat with the lovely Kermode Bear. He's a Kermode Bear. What's up, Grizz Cheese? Yeah, we're all here. We'll run riot. Yeah, we're going to mock the Clintons. I'm also going to compare this clip of Hillary Clinton to a conversation we're going to have later on in the show, because we're going to talk about what does it mean to try and silence someone. We're still talking about the Douglas Murray, Joe Rogan debate, ? Ian Howarth is going to be on the show again today. Everybody loves Ian. Unfortunately, no John Miltimore. He's traveling. He had a little Easter holiday with his weekend. How was yours? What's up, Nelson? Did you guys have a nice Easter? Looks like the Pope, unfortunately, did not have the best Easter. He was not feeling well. Anyway, J.D. Vance just happened to meet with him right before Pope Francis passed away. He was in Argentine. Therefore, Javier Milei this morning posted his condolences to those to the family and friends of Pope Francis this morning with a nice message. I reposted it over on my X account, so if you're not following me over there, make sure you do so. Hello to TMill22. Lovely to see you. I'm glad that we have all of our friends here now, and everybody has clicked the like button and is also subscribed to the channel. We've got a lot to discuss this morning, and there are some major breaking news stories that, honestly, I think other news outlets would cover better than my show. And that's how I determine what is the content that I should discuss on my show. Is, can I talk about something or offer you a point of view that you're not necessarily going to get anywhere else? You could watch Steven Crowder, for example, or Benny Johnson, or Sean Hannity, or Tim Pool, right? And you're going to get them covering certain stories. What would be an example of a story like this? Well, a story that that Tim Pool or some of those other shows would do better would be something like the Pope Francis story, right? First pontiff from the Americas, dead at 88 after a long respiratory crisis. People who are Catholics would probably do that story better than myself. I was raised as a Protestant, but I'm not a churchgoer. So my knowledge of the church and of the intercomplex dynamics of such is limited. So therefore, I can just read to you the news there. And since I'm not an expert and I've never met the Pope. Oh, well, if you say you're not an expert, you've never met him. Have you ever met the Pope? Yes, Douglas Murray is still hanging over the head of everyone's consciences. As I posted yesterday on X, I like and I agree with a lot of things that Douglas Murray has to say. Yes, I am a libertarian, but I don't agree with Dave Smith on foreign policy. I don't consider myself to be an anarchist. No shit. So I don't adopt anarchist talking points when it comes to foreign policy. I don't consider myself a neoconservative, so I don't think that it's in the United States' best interest to try and remake the rest of the world in the shape of a democracy. So I'm not a neoconservative, right? I'm a minarchist, a constitutionalist. There's a method to my madness, but it is the stupid kids who always make fun of the smart kids. And Douglas Murray is one of the smart kids. And no offense, Dave's kind of one of the dumb kids, guys. You don't get to be morally superior just because you say, I'm anti-war, what about the children? Well, what about the fucking children, right? The children are on the head of those who initiated the violence, right? Nappers, right? And I'm not a napsy. But you would think that the casualties are on the responsibility of the people who attacked a festival and murdered a bunch of kids. Well, interestingly enough, at Coachella, a music festival out in was it Los Angeles, I noticed that they had an F Israel, Free Palestine sign at the music festival, which I considered to be quite ironic. And I'm glad I wasn't the only one to see that. So IG Hayworth over on X will be joining us this morning at 8:30 a.m. Central Time. So make sure you stick around, or if you've got to leave and like make breakfast or something for the kids, then I highly recommend that you set an appointment on your phone, a calendar to come back at 8:30 a.m. Central. Did everybody survive? If you were from Missouri, like I am, and I know we got a lot of Missouri listeners, did everybody survive the tornadoes yesterday? Two pretty nasty storms. And it was my mother-in-law's birthday. Verna, happy birthday to you. You live in a zoo. You look like... Okay. Careful. The Wake Up America show had a great weekend, except we almost died twice. We had a situation where we don't have a basement here, so our neighbors are generous to like let us crash in their basement. So I marched a group of kids and as adults across soggy, sodden fields in the middle of a storm into a basement area. Maybe we need to dig one of those here. It's just that we're in a floodplain, unfortunately, so it's a little bit dangerous for us. So we made it, and we were safe. We hunkered down in a bunker for like an hour, and then things kind of cleared up. And then right as we're taking our mother-in-law to Olive Garden, right, the ladies are all really excited. The kids, yay, breadsticks, right? Breaking Passover, they get to eat the leavened bread. They're so excited for the pizzas, the kids. And of course, what happens on the way to Columbia? But a perfect storm coming up straight up the highway, coming right like with us, traveling with us as we are on our way to Columbia, because that's the only place there's an Olive Garden. Shut up, it's delicious. Whatever. I don't care. I eat the taste of Italy, and it's great. So I'm glad everybody is alive. And Brad, living down the street, says, my wife sat in the basement while I watched out the back door. Well, that's really smart, Brad. I'm glad that you're alive. We had some hard rain for a bit, says Cecilia. Frickety says the weather's been wacky in Michigan for the few weeks. I heard the area in Tornado Alley has gotten bigger. Interesting. 5 tornado warnings, the most I've heard it in a row, says T-Mill22. Yes. Steffi says, yes, we were like storm chasers. Not quite, not quite. So I bring you news that you can use and stories that I think I can contribute with. We're going to talk a little bit about relationships today, but before we do, let's give you an update on what's happening. Here's this week's MAGA Minute.
Hey everybody, as you can hear, we are warming up for the White House Easter egg roll, which will take place on Monday, but we did a lot this week, so let's go through it in the MAGA Minute. This week, a number of companies announced massive investments, with NVIDIA, Abbott Labs, and Honda among the list of companies investing billions of dollars in jobs right here in the United States.
Thank God.
President Trump hosted President Bukele of El Salvador, Prime Minister Meloni of Italy, the 2024 NCAA football champions Ohio State University, and the U.S. Navy football team this week as well. And the border is still more secure than it has ever been, with Border Patrol recording its lowest southwest border crossings in history. The president took actions to lower prescription drug prices, prevent illegal aliens from obtaining your Social Security benefits, and removed burdensome regulations that were stifling the U.S. commercial fishing industry. Angel mom Patty Morin joined me from the podium to tell the story of her daughter's brutal murder at the hands of an illegal alien.
This music is really like kind of, makes me want to, drink a martini.
While simultaneously calling out her senator, who flew to El Salvador to retrieve an MS-13 gang member, wife beater, and illegal alien. President Trump remains committed to putting the American people first, you and your family first, and we will never waver in that commitment. We'll see you for next week's MAGA Minute, and we are wishing everybody a blessed and happy Easter Sunday.
There we go. All right. Well, I appreciate that the White House does that. You know, I mean, they put their own spin on things, but it's nice to see. Chris Van Hollen, senator visiting the alleged MS-13 gang member in El Salvador, got a response from Stephen Miller at the White House. Here's what he had to say.
I'm almost at a loss for words for how outrageous it is. Here's an individual, the man who has been deported to his home country of El Salvador, who has been repeatedly documented by multiple federal and state authorities to be a member of MS-13, one of the most violent and ruthless criminal organizations on planet Earth, which is now a designated foreign terrorist organization, and an individual who has been incredibly implicated in human smuggling and human trafficking, an individual who is a documented woman beater, somebody who is viciously assaulted.
Man, this guy hates him. He hates him some illegals, man.
A woman in ways that
I don't know if any of this is true. It could be bullshit, right? It could be. For all we know, the guy could be. Maybe he is MS-13, right? Maybe he is as dangerous as they say. I tend to think they probably hype the threat, but maybe he is as dangerous as he is. But there's no way he's. I mean, this guy is like Satan incarnate. Stephen Miller's like, and you're just kind of like, all right, yeah, I mean, for sure, right? Give me my 2 minutes, hate, Stephen.
Shock the human conscience. That is who the Democrat Party is going to provide aid, solace, and comfort to, not to Senator Van Hollen's own constituents. Like
Brad Beckman says he constantly ends his sentences as if they're questions, and it annoys me. Brad, you are very smart. You can hear that. You know what they call that? That's called up talking. And there's a whole body of literature and YouTube videos about this, which is a trend. It's called up talking. It's like, for example, Joe Rogan mocks Douglas Murray and Coachella music festivals. Ironic pro-Palestine sign. We're gonna have Ian Howarth on our show. Can you imagine? What would you do if the Wake Up America show was just like this? And if I talked to you about the news like that, and if this is what I sounded like, would you listen to the show all the way through, all 2 hours? If this is how I talked the entire 2 hours, would you watch the Wake Up America show?
In 2019, Garcia was issued a deportation order. Two separate judges affirmed Garcia was a member of MS-13, which is a gang that may be even worse.
We've been watching President Donald Trump there swearing in the new administrator of the CMS, the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid, Dr. Mehmet Oz, during this conversation.
Mehmet Oz is going to MS-13.
Holland sipping what appears to be...
Hold on one second here.
Information.
Here's Tom Homan, man. This guy looks dangerous. You do not want to... If you're an illegal immigrant trying to get in the United States and you see a face like that trying to come across the border, boy, run. Run, Pablo. Run, Chiquitas. You're not getting across the border. When you see a face like that pulling up the border patrol, right? This isn't some Kristi Noem in her tactical gear looking like a gun bunny. This dude has killed people.
Senator Van Hollen has obviously got a chance to meet with him, but he had to travel to El Salvador to get any information. Does that concern you at all? I mean, these are...
This guy barbecues illegal immigrants.
Sent by the United... I mean, in his case, sent by the United States, and not even a U.S. senator could get any information about his whereabouts or the condition of his incarceration without actually going down and making the trip to El Salvador himself?
Well, he obviously knew his whereabouts because he went there to see him. But you know what bothers me more than that is a U.S. senator traveled to El Salvador on taxpayer dime to meet with an MS-13 gang member, public safety threat terrorist. I mean, in the meantime, the day before he traveled, an illegal alien was arrested for murder, released to the streets rather than honoring an ICE detainer in his very own state. What concerns me is Van Hollen never went to the border the last 4 years on Joe Biden, when he had a 600% increase in sex trafficking in women and children. You have a record number of no-inspected terrorists crossing that border. You had 250,000 Americans die from fentanyl overdose because of the open border. You had over 4,000 illegal aliens died.
Is it because the border is open, or is it because people just really like to take drugs? I'm pretty sure it's the drugs. You could have the most secure border in the world. You go around the border with the drugs. JJ4884 says, well, Stephen Miller was right about Duke lacrosse. Very true. Look it up. Stephen Miller, as a young lad, was right about that lacrosse grape case. Welcome to the Wake Up America show. I love it when we break 100 live viewers over on Rumble. I love Rumble, and Rumble has been so good to us. If you're watching us on Rumble, thank you. We really only support the show on Rumble and a little bit on X because, quite frankly, this is the only platform that has made it so that I can have free speech and say what I want to say and not be suppressed, not be censored, not be deboosted, not be demonetized like I have been on so many other platforms. So if you're watching us over on rumble.com today, when you click the like button or when you follow our stream, you take those free actions, you're not just supporting the Wake Up America show and Stephanie and Brad Beckman and the documentary and all the good work that we're trying to do for liberty over here, but you're also supporting Rumble as well. When you're donating Rumble rants, just like JJ did earlier, a portion of those go to Rumble as well. So you're supporting, no matter what, every penny that you give and every action that you take through Rumble supports me. It supports Rumble and, the platform of free speech. So let's give it up for Rumble, guys. Yo! We appreciate them. But Senator Chris Van Hollen, the guy who went to El Salvador to meet with the alleged MS-13 gang member, went on the Sunday shows and had this to say.
Who did pay for this trip?
This was an officially cleared, congressional trip, cleared on a bipartisan basis. Yes, like every other trip.
Who did pay?
Bro! Of course, it's taxpayer dollars. It's like every other trip. Is it every other trip? Because I'm pretty sure there's some trips that maybe taxpayers don't pay for to certain islands out there. Speaking of, hey, where is the Epstein list? Yo, are we all freaking out here? Because we were told that there was a list on Attorney General Pam Bondi's desk. I really thought that there was going to be some revelations coming out of this White House that wasn't just copies of files that we have already seen before given to binders while conservative influencers hold them up smiling like idiots outside the White House. I thought we were going to get more than that. Getting a little sus over there at the FBI and the DOJ. I'm going to be real. That's probably been one of the more disappointing aspects of the new administration. But Austin, it's only been 100 days. They only really have 2 years to govern. And then the last 2 years is just, getting ready for the next election. And honestly, with the way independents are going right now, I don't know that it's really going to go our way, guys. I mean, I know that listen, there's always the Baghdad Bobs out there who are like, everything is fine, nothing is wrong, everything go perfect. And it's just kind of like, well, are you reading the same news sources that I am? I guess we're not, honestly, because there's just so damn many of them. We're all just in our own little bubbles reading everything that we want to believe or see or hear. I got to give people credit, and this is not just like kissing the ass of my audience, but if you watch a Wake Up America show, you are not getting your ass kissed on this show as an audience. Like there's fan service that gets done on this show. Trust me, believe me, I do it, right? There's red meat that gets thrown out in this show. Trust me, believe me, I do it. But for the most part, this is the not confirmation bias zone. This is like sandpaper for the brain sometimes, because you're going to hear things on the Wake Up America show that's going to be kind of like, oh, wow, where is this coming from, right? It's kind of zip, zap, zoop, zap. It's a little crazy. It's a little zany. It can be quite psychotic. But if you are not a D student, as most were, then you'll enjoy the Wake Up America show because it will tickle your noggin and maybe some other things as well. Dad Bod Baboon, what's up? I really thought there were going to be people in handcuffs, he said. Me too.
I think at some point the president of El Salvador realized it was looking really bad to have this person who had been absconded from America, from the streets of Maryland, in one of their prisons. I think at some point the president of El Salvador realized...
Are you sure about that one, bud? Are you sure about that one? I don't think so. How is it the Democrats managed to always look worse? It just for whatever reason, the Democrats are perfect at screwing it up. I saw a great conversation between Charlie Kirk and Bill Maher over the weekend. And I know people like Laura Loomer would scream at me, "Don't try and retcon Bill Maher. He's terrible. We don't want to watch it." But I mean, I think he's like kind of the only sane lefty Democrat that there is out there. The rest of them all sound almost all like this.
David Hogg, who I know you know, a vice chair of the Democratic National Committee, he's going to be joining us on the roundtable, and he is pursuing this effort to unseat some Democrats in safe seats through primary challenges. He's talked about a culture of seniority politics that is not working for the party. He said, quote, "We need a better Democratic Party and need to get rid of the Democrats in safe seats who do not understand what is at stake now, who are asleep at the wheel, not meeting the moment, and are a liability."
Oh, man, this David Hogg guy is great. Keep it, if we want to win the midterms, more David Hogg.
Into the future of our party. What's your response to this idea of targeting some of your Democratic incumbents?
Well, I look forward to standing behind every single Democratic incumbent, from the most progressive to the most centrist and all points in between. They're working hard in their communities, rising to the occasion. This past week, we had, of course, a Medicaid Matters Day of Action, a Safe Social Security Day of Action, and we have to continue to do all of the things. Rallies, town hall meetings in Democratic districts, town hall meetings in Republican.
This guy, if it's not David Hogg, it's this guy, Hakeem Jeffries. Or I'm loving James Carville lobbing bombs at David Hogg, and the responses have just been so delicious.
He's being paid to run against other Democrats. I think it's an outrage. I don't know if I have standing, but I might give the DNC $10 and sue him. He's a contemptible little twerp, if you ask me.
The well-known Democratic strategist James Carville said in response to this announcement of this plan that you have to primary Democrats, he said that the DNC should sue you and called you, quote, a contemptible little twerp. What is your reaction to that?
Try it. That is my reaction.
Try it.
I would also say James Carville.
Can you just imagine? Can you imagine what it would be like to arm wrestle David Hogg?
Before I was born. I think it's time to have new leaders in our party that are ready to meet this moment, because a lot of the people that are most critical of this plan are the same ones that had $2 billion to win an election and still lost. So I think the experts can save it, because it's time for some new ideas.
Okay, good point, David. They did have $2 billion and they did lose Kamala the election. Touche. If you're enjoying the Wake Up America show, don't forget, click that like button and support the Wake Up America show with a Rumble rant. Drop a Rumble rant, support the Wake Up America show. There is no bonus content today. I apologize. I had a very, very busy weekend, but we will hopefully have some for you by tomorrow. It's going to be a great week, so make sure that you support the Wake Up America show with those Rumble rants.
But I also think there are Americans who are engaged in this kind of propaganda. And whether they should be civilly or even in some cases criminally charged is something that would be a better deterrence because than boosting Trump back in 2016.
So that to me, that is what I would... $40 billion and not a single inch of track. Welcome. Excuse me. That to me, that is what I would consider an attempt to silence voices. I would consider censorship. What do you think? You can text the show at 573-319-1586. That's 573-319-1586. Why women don't want to date red-pilled men, right? It's a warning as a grim male trend erupts, writes the NYPost. Red pill men, modern dating trends, all of that and more. I'm going to give you a break from commercials. I'll play the bonus content from last Friday. It was really good. If you missed it, we'll play it now. It was unlocked on Friday, so you can watch it now. I'm going to go take a quick little bathroom break. I'm going to get some more segments and content ready for you. We got Ian Howarth at 8:30, so stick around for that. It's the Wake Up America Show on the WakeUpAmericaShow.com. Tired of spending your hard-earned money on woke corporations that don't share your pro-freedom values? Fed up with sipping liberal latte?
tired of the strange radioactive effects of leftist culture? Do you ever wonder what happened to good old-fashioned American values? Well, fear no more, because there's a new force fighting back against the cultural rot of today. Introducing Culturama.
12 years, $40 billion, and not a single inch of track. Welcome to America's most expensive imaginary train. Back in 2012, Texans were promised a miracle of modern transit, a high-speed rail line connecting Dallas and Houston in just 90 minutes. It was sleek, it was shiny, it was supposed to be a Texas-sized leap into the future. And today, you could walk the entire route in cowboy boots before you ever set foot on this so-called bullet train. 12 years in, and what do we have? No stations, no trains, no track. But don't worry. There's plenty of paperwork, lawsuits, blown deadlines, and scorched taxpayer money to go around. The project, called Texas Central Railway, was originally pitched as a private venture. No public money needed. It was going to be the first true high-speed rail system in the country, completely self-funded. Fast forward a few years, and that private label started fading faster than Amtrak's on-time performance. Costs ballooned. Construction never started. Investors started pulling back. And suddenly, surprise, the project had its hand out for federal funding. That's when the Department of Transportation stepped in with a $64 million planning grant. Because nothing screams fiscally sound decision-making like rewarding a project that's produced absolutely nothing with more money. But even the feds eventually had to admit this was a bad look. Just this month, they rescinded the grant, calling the project what it is, a total waste of taxpayer dollars. And yet, the folks behind Texas Central still claim it's all going according to plan. They say trains could be running in 7 years, which if you're keeping track is the same thing they said 7 years ago. Meanwhile, they're tangled up in legal battles with property owners who don't want a rail line carved through their land, and who can blame them? Especially when the only thing chugging along is a stack of empty promises. Let's not sugarcoat this. This is a case study in government-enabled vaporware. A $40 billion transportation fantasy that's accomplished less than a high school woodshop project. And the defenders? Oh, they'll tell you it's about vision, about legacy, about building for the future. But if you've ever driven through Texas, you know what Texans actually use: pickup trucks, highways, and Buc-ee's. You think the average Texan is going to trade the open road for a $200 one-way train ticket that drops them off 30 minutes outside the city center? Give me a break. Let's play this out. Even if they finish this project by 2032, you'd be riding a train designed in 2012 with costs that escalated every year it was delayed, in a state where almost nobody wants to ride it. That's not innovation, that's transportation cosplay. And if you think this is just a Texas thing, think again. This is exactly how central planning works. Overpromise, underdeliver, and when it fails, ask for more money. Every time. Doesn't matter if it's rail, energy, broadband, or healthcare. The model is always the same. Failure equals justification for more funding. Because in the minds of these bureaucratic planners, nothing ever flops. It's just early. 12 years behind? That's just the planning phase. No track? Well, they're finalizing designs. No riders? Projected demand is strong. They'll never admit they built a shrine to nowhere. Instead, they'll commission another feasibility study, slap a new coat of branding on it, and try to convince Congress that this time it's gonna work. It's like a Ponzi scheme in slow motion, except instead of scamming retirees, it's bleeding taxpayers dry. And if you're wondering where all that money went, consultants, attorneys, PR firms, planners, and enough environmental impact studies to wallpaper the Alamo, you know who didn't get a dime? Anyone actually building a train? This whole debacle is proof that when government and big ideas collide, the result isn't progress, it's paralysis with a billion-dollar price tag. And if you're wondering what happens next, here's a spoiler. More press releases, more revised timelines, and still no train. Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoy watching bureaucratic boondoggles get skewered with a little common sense and a lot of sarcasm, check out what we're building at forlibertyshop.com. That's where we turn frustration into fuel, and into t-shirts, mugs, and merch that actually arrives on time, unlike this mythical bullet train. Visit forlibertyshop.com now. Pick something up, look great, and remind the world that freedom travels a lot faster than government-funded rail. See you next time.
Do you want to know what it is? The Matrix is everywhere. It is all around us. Even now, in this very room. You can see it when you look out your window or when you turn on your television. You can feel it when you go to work, when you go to church, when you pay your taxes. It is the world that has been pulled over your eyes to blind you from the truth. What truth? That you are a slave, Neo. Like everyone else, you were born into bondage, born into a prison that you cannot smell or taste or touch. A prison for your mind. Unfortunately, no one can be told what the Matrix is. You have to see it for yourself. This is your last chance. After this, there is no turning back. You take the blue pill, the story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to believe. You take the red pill, you stay in Wonderland, and I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
Which pill would you take? Good morning. I took the red pill, baby. Welcome to the Wake Up America show. I'm your host, Austin Peterson, hanging out with Luke Sacker, Will Run Riot, Andy Opperman, Amy J. Ease, Drew Van Runkle, Bucks Nasty. He's not nasty, he's nice. As well as Kermode Bear, Joni Rankin, Dad Bod Baboon, and so many others. It's good to see you guys. Good morning, my little pineapples. Red-pilled men. New York Post writes, why women don't want to date a red-pilled man. It's a warning. Look out. It's a grim male trend that has erupted. Rebecca Scanlon, writing via the AustralianNews.com website. You know those Australians. They really love freedom and masculinity and gun rights and all that kind of stuff. No. They hate freedom. Australia has turned against us, turned against the principles of liberty, turned against the things that made the West great. Whenever I hear these, and I'm just getting so tired of British people, no offense if I have any British listeners, and Ian Howarth, who's going to join us at 8:30, has a suspiciously British accent. But man, am I tired of hearing British opinions about how the West has fallen, and this is why we need tyranny, etc., etc. I'm like, bitch, your West has fallen. America is doing okay. Not great, but better than Australia and the UK. Better than Britain. The British Isles. Much better. Yeah. Yeah, it's much better in the United States over here. So I just don't want to hear your British opinions, especially over the weekend. It wasn't just Easter weekend. It wasn't just my mother-in-law's birthday. It was also the 250th anniversary of the shot heard around the world. Die, redcoats. I actually preferred the term lobsterbacks. I remember reading that one when I was a young man in school, but I was like, lobsterbacks. Isn't that so much cooler than redcoat? I mean, redcoat definitely like stirs something of the American national pride, which the word redcoat. I'm going to kill me a redcoat, right? Everybody remember that line from The Patriot? I'm going to kill me a redcoat. I believe you would, young man. But I just really liked lobster backs because, I don't know, it's funny. I like lobster. So lobster backs it is here. So 250th anniversary of the shot heard around the world. And I have to listen to British opinions about how we don't need the Constitution or due process here in the United States. And like, I see like these British, just the worst, slimiest Brits, like calling themselves like little Lord Fauntleroys and shit, right? And it's just kind of like, okay, maybe if you are a lord, I think I'm going to hold that even more against you. But if you're not a lord and you call yourself a lord on X, saying things like, Happy Easter to the Christians and the Jews, no, you have nothing in this, all this kind of stuff. It's kind of like, bro, shut up. Shut up. Like, we need Twitter, but no British people. I'm tired of British. I'm British bigot. It's just, can't tell you every time I open up my X account and I have to see some British account talking about why the tyranny is the West is fallen in tyranny. I get it. Your country sucks. Your country is going to hell. That's your fault, right? The United States doesn't need to be more like you, or we don't need a monarchy. We don't need to get rid of our Constitution or due process because you're the last things. You're right wing, and you could tell the United States how to do things, and then you're going to come in here and tell, you don't want to be liberal. It's the terrible. It's America's liberalism that the problem. Remember, Ronald Reagan is your enemy. Squeeze me. Shut up. I don't want to hear your British opinions.
But it sounds like some fucking commie gobbledygook.
Exactly. Thank you, Norm. Norm can say the F word anytime he likes, as long as it's part of that little skit. And I posted this great picture over the weekend because a lot of people didn't know. They were doing reenactments in Boston of Paul Revere and his midnight ride. I found this gravestone, beautifully maintained. Thank you to whoever takes care of this grave in Boston. It says, near this spot, Samuel Whittemore, then 80 years old, 80, killed 3 British soldiers, April 19, 1776. 1775. He was shot, bayoneted, beaten, and left for dead, but recovered and lived to be 98 years of age. Way to go, dude. Samuel Whittemore. Killed 3 Brits, was shot, bayoneted, beaten, left for dead, lived another 18 years. I mean, come on. The shot heard around the world. So when I read articles like this and it comes from like Australia or Britain, I'm like, shut up, right? Let's call out. Where's Hillary Clinton when you need her? Here we go. We need punishment for having British opinions online.
But I also think there are Americans who are
I also think there are British people and Australians
engaged in this kind of propaganda. And whether they should be civilly or even in some cases criminally charged is something that would be a better deterrence because than boosting Trump back.
There we go. Exactly. Replace that with British people and we'll have it. No, I don't want to hear British opinions, except I'm going to read them to you right now. This is the article from Australia that was published in the New York Post. Why women don't want to date a, quote, red-pilled man. This is the warning, guys. Look out. It's a grim male trend, she writes. Rebecca Scanlon. She says there are over 330,000 more women than men in Australia. You can tell this is why they're getting desperate, man. They are not. The ladies are not happy. There are over 330,000 more women than men in Australia. But despite the dating pool inequality, inequity, there's a growing number of single guys that women will never pursue. Oh, no. These undateable, she's determined that they're undateable. These undateable men are those who subscribe to the red pill notion. No. An alarming subculture that perpetuates a societal hatred against women by how do they, oh God, they sound terrible, Rebecca. What do? They oppose feminist narratives. No! It gets worse. It gets worse. It gets worse. Well, that's the first mortal sin. The second mortal sin here, and this, guys, just be ready, okay? Just grab your pillow and start biting it, because they also emphasize traditional gender roles. No! I'm so scared. The term originates from the 1999 film The Matrix, where the lead character is offered the choice between a red pill and a blue pill, as we played earlier. The red pill symbolizes awakening to harsh realities, while the blue pill represents remaining happy but ignorant. Sometimes, being a libertarian and having taken like the classes in Austrian economics and going to all the lectures at the Cato Institute, I gotta say, man, sometimes it's, and then you look around the rest of this population and it's just like, oh God, sometimes, I wish I could, that blue pill, it's sometimes it's very tempting, right? It's very tempting. But in the context of this discussion, right, men's rights activism, which maybe is conflated with red pill. I can see why people would conflate those two things, and that's a conversation. Have taken the, quote, red pill concept to represent a similar awakening to what they perceive as the true nature of society and gender relations. Okay, I'll give Rebecca that. Let's continue. She also continues to write, what's up, Zed the Head? These modern misogynists, there they are. No, they're misogynists. They come out because they want a traditional wife, and they want to have, and they speak against feminist narratives. They've already been labeled as misogynists. They often come together online. No, see, this is again another crime. The men coming together online, right? In having their own place where they can speak unmolested, where they can talk about things, where they can have their locker room talk, and they can make jokes about grab her by the hoo-haws, right? All of that stuff that women don't like that we talk about, that we talk about in private, right? They want to abolish that. No, we cannot have the men conspiring against us. These modern misogynists, Rebecca writes, often come together online in a virtual space dubbed the Manosphere. No. It's a collective of various digital communities promoting warped views, she writes, on masculinity. Man, she hasn't even given us many facts yet other than the Matrix reference, but she's already told us how we should feel about these misogynists, the misogynists. Surefire eye. People found within the manosphere, where did that come from? Include men's rights activists and incels. No! She's really pulling all the buzzwords out here, man. This is an Australian feminist. This is a white liberal feminist female, man. She is going to tell you who to hate. Get your hate box out, guys. It's time to write down in your burn book who you hate. A group of heterosexual men. No. There's some gays in there too, honey. I'll tell you this, some of the biggest misogynists I know are gay dudes who can't stand you females, so let's not act like it's heteros. Heterosexual men want to like women. The gay men who hate women, they will never like you. Have you ever known like the girl who tried to turn the gay guy straight? Have you ever seen that situation, right? Where it's like, oh my God, you always have one of those in college where it's like you've got the gay guy and he's obviously like, lighting the loafers and he's not into her, but she kind of like, it becomes like, the F word hag to eventually, if they manage to reach like a truce, but everybody's kind of like, are you dating? Are you not? Because he kind of hasn't come out of the closet yet, but she's just like, he doesn't know that like he's only really into her because of her shoes and her makeup and her clothing and because they're interested in the same kind of men. But no. Rebecca in the Australian writes, she says that A group of heterosexual men who blame women in society for their lack of romantic success and who openly admit to loathing women for not sleeping with them. Okay, yes, there are this community of what they call involuntary celibates, right? They are incels. We had a conversation about them with John Doyle on Friday. It was a great conversation. If you missed our discussion, you definitely want to see that interview that I did with John Doyle on Friday. Maybe I'll play that here in a few minutes. We'll see. We are going to have Ian Howarth coming up at 8:30 a.m., so make sure that you join us for that. Luke Sacker calls it Rock Hudson syndrome. Will Run Riot calls it, we used to call them fruit flies. No, that is wrong. She's a cover for mom and dad. Yes, exactly. Right. People found that, and there was always these really wispy chicks. I don't want to get too distracted by the fruit fly situation, but like we all knew that we all had one of those situations, right? In college. So yeah, incels. Are they a thing? Yes. Are they a problem? Well, if they're like Elliot Rodger, they can be, right? So probably a good idea to keep your eye on the creepy weirdos, right? There have always been men who really resented women for their inability to get them. And usually what happens is those men grow up, right? A lot of these incels, they're either, young dudes, typically, they're not all mentally ill weirdos who are just like, they're usually like 14 to 15-year-old guys who are like, I guarantee you, at 13, 14, 15 years old, damn near every guy, except for like the ones who just got lucky and had won a genetic lottery. At 13, 14, 15, all men, or young men, teenage men, are like, I'm never going to get a woman. I need to be romantic. I need to do all these kinds of things. They have no clue. They don't know the first thing about women. So they think, oh, well, maybe I'm an incel. You're not supposed to have sex 13, 14, 15, dude. You don't have to worry about it, right? Just wait. You got plenty of time. That's what I would say to a lot of these young men. And are there people who come into these communities and take advantage of these young men and manipulate them? Certainly they do. But what I suspect, I posit, I guess, I'm not an expert. I haven't met all these people, but I will just say that I think that the rejection of the red pill amongst this to me sounds like the author of this article is projecting. And what they're projecting is their own insecurities, because red-pilled men, if they're like me, I consider myself something of a red-pilled man, right? I'm not a right-wing Christian nationalist authoritarian, put your wife in a, Mennonite dress and don't let anyone see her. I'm not a Christian Taliban or something like that. Like, no, wives are never to be seen or heard, obviously, right? But what it sounds like to me is that they don't like that there is a group of men that they can't manipulate. Yes. Oh, these men can be manipulated. They say, yes, some men can. Yes. Some of these men can be. Yeah, the 13 and 14 and 15-year-olds and the Indian men in the Indian subcontinent who make up probably a significant, maybe a majority of these online communities. Another reason why I have called for a social networking, a new social networking site. If you guys want to support it, drop some Rumble rants. Only in America. That's what it is. Only Americans. OnlyAmericans.com. And no one else, nobody from the Indian subcontinent, no British opinions, no Australian feminists, right, talking about doing 99 or 1,000 dudes in a day. We don't have to listen to their opinions. We don't have to hear from Chinese bots or Russian scammers, crypto scammers, nothing. Only Americans allowed on my new social network. You don't have to be lonely. OnlyAmericans.com. All right, back to the article. Rebecca Scanlon writes in the Australian News, while it's easy to brush off the rise of mainstream misogyny as internet fodder or a sensationalized storyline from a TV show, data, here comes the data, shows it seeping into every corner of culture, from social media feeds to Aussie classrooms. The disturbing rise in troubled men is something, quote, Australians should be worried about, warns Tarang Chawla, a vocal advocate for gender equality and an anti-violence campaigner. Oh, great. Anti-violence campaigner, great. I'm sure she's one of those types. I'm anti-war, but murder the Israelis at the music festival. We're going to talk to Ian Howarth about that at 8:30. The Coachella Music Festival. Rebecca writes that, have a good day, Cecilia. We'll miss you. The disturbing rise in troubled men is something Australians should be worried about, writes Tarang Chawla. Another problem that could be solved by onlyamericans.com. The rise of red pill culture and manosphere thinking isn't just edgy internet banter, but it makes for really good podcasts. It's leading to real world harm. At its core, why did I think this was a chick? It's a dude. The Tarang Chawla. What? That's a guy with dad. That's a guy with like, is that daddy issues or mommy issues? If your name is Tarang Chawla and you are a vocal advocate, pussy, excuse me, for gender equality and an anti-violence campaigner, and you're a guy, and you say things like, the rise of red pill culture and manosphere thinking isn't just edgy internet banter, and Australians should be worried about it. And your name's Tarang Chawla. I mean, would it be safe to assume, that you would assume that would be a chick to say something like that? Heterosexual men don't talk like that. At its core, it frames gender equality as this kind of threat and paints women as either being manipulative or lesser. There's one thing that I know is that women aren't manipulative and men are never violent. Men are never physically violent. And men are 100% of the time, men are never physically violent the same way women are never manipulative. Oh, God, they had a picture of this guy. Gay! This normalizes misogyny and creates this culture where violence against women is excused, minimized, or even justified. Bro, look to your own house. How many hundreds of thousands, how many millions of Muslim immigrants has Australia been taking in? And you're talking about a culture where violence against women is excused, minimized, or even justified? I mean, something tells me that Tarang Chawla, a vocal advocate for gender equality, is more than likely a big supporter of free Palestine, right? Like, how do they treat their women? Right? It's always just so weird, the cognitive dissonance, right? As we Western liberals, right, here in the land of, I mean, I won't say equality, but I mean, like, to some extent, like, in the United States, it's probably more equal here than almost anywhere else in the world. I mean, where else do they have more, right? Here's the thing. Equality for women in the United States would be a step down. Okay. All right. What they really want is what they have. What the feminists really want is what they have in places like Denmark and Scandinavian countries, which are all white, by the way. What they really want is they don't want equality. They want more rights. They want to do whatever they want. They want due process is only for MS-13 gang members, not for white males who are accused of assaults. No. We destroy the white heterosexual male in the court of public opinions. There's no due process for them. The due process is for the Trenda Aragua gang members. The due process is only for the violent Muslim terrorists who want to kill us all. It's not for white heterosexual male. He's really the enemy. I mean, you guys. JJ4884 asks the real questions. He says, are South Indian men ugly in your opinion, AP? Bro, I'm not gay, so all men are ugly to me. They're all ugly. I don't really buy into the idea necessarily that like there are like higher percentage per se of like one gender being more attractive. Although when you look at some of the Asian countries, you might look at like perhaps Japan or Cambodia or maybe the Philippines and say, oh man, well the women are much more beautiful than the men. There might be an argument for some of that kind of stuff. Right, you could make an argument, but the thing is, it's probably the sample size, right? How we select for such, because Western standards are not the same as Eastern standards of beauty. So are we comparing it to Western standards of beauty? Is that the universal standard? I don't really know. And when it comes to dudes, honestly, JJ, I'm not going to sit around looking at enough dudes to try and figure a question like that out, honest dude. I hope you don't mind, because despite the fact that people say that I'm gay for having lots of shoes, did you see this over the weekend? People were posting a closet with a man who had like hundreds of pairs of sneakers and shoes and all that stuff, and people were like, "It's so gay. Men don't like this. Men would never want this," and all this stuff. And I was just kind of like, I was doing that monkey side eye meme where it's kind of like this, and you're looking at the side. It's like, because I got a lot of shoes. I mean, I've collected over the years. So you've got dress shoes for occasions. Some of us travel more than 50 miles away from where we live. Some of us do things. Not everybody just walks from the house to the end of the drive and, goes to work and then comes home and that's all they do, right? There's a lot of people who do that, and that's fine, and that's their lives and that's their choice. But, when you go places, you have shoes for different occasions, right? I have a pair of cowboy boots. This is Missouri. You have to have at least one pair or else they will actually castrate you. My dad, whenever he goes to TJ Maxx, picks me up sneakers. I sell sneakers. I have like a dozen or so pairs of sneakers, right? Dress shoes, right? I go to hearings and meetings. You can't wear, if you wear the same dress shoes, if you pound the pavement in a city, you need different pairs of dress shoes, because you can't wear the same dress shoes the next day because they need time to fluff back up, or else they're going to get like broken down, in which case you're going to have a bad time. So yeah, I got a lot of shoes because, I do things, right? Do you do things? Got a pair of fisherman's waders, gum boots, right? Loafers, slippers, sneakers, sandals, slides. Yeah. We got a lot of shoes, like nice shoes. Somebody was like, "Oh, that means you're gay." No, bitch, it means you poor. You got your work boots, your steel-toed work boots, right? I mean, come on. Misogyny. My name is Terang. I'm looking to bang dudes. Says Frickety. Chala. Now here comes the sob story. Whose sister Nikita was 23 years old when her husband murdered her in a jealous rage in 2015. Added that these distorted beliefs create a dangerous space for women to exist in. Chala, your sister Nikita, was that a Western man that she had married? I would like to know. I mean, I think it's a legitimate question to ask. What culture did the man come from who she was married to? So not an incel, right? Not what we're talking about here. But of course, if you want to have a cause, you got to raise money for lots of different causes in order to make it these days, because everybody's so splintered. So if your sister is murdered by her husband, then you can't just raise money from domestic abuse survivors. There's already a lot of people who are out there sucking up that cash, that sweet nonprofit cash from those NGOs, the non-governmental organizations that get a lot of money for institutions into domestic abuse, right? And where does 9 out of every $10 go? Right into the pocket of the people who put those things together. Maybe 50 cents of the dollar that's left over gets used for some, shelters or things like that. But for the rest of you guys, you look into the charities. Look into these charities, guys, before you give your money. I know it's a tax write-off for some people, and that's legit, and I understand that. But most of these charities are ostensibly just taking the money and run. And so, of course, he's not his sister was killed by a husband, unknown cultural origin. And now he's an expert on red pill and the manosphere and misogyny. And he writes, the idea that men are universally oppressed, or that women only pursue wealthier men or a certain kind of man, reinforces this toxic adversarial view of gender that is pitting people against each other, he says. The idea that men are universally oppressed. here is how I would put this. Everyone is oppressed by nature. Nature is a bitch. There's this concept called entropy. It's pushing on us all the time. The gender roles were not a patriarchal construct. They were a survival mechanism, a tool of biological necessity that came out of the need for humankind to reproduce itself, and to do so making the best use of limited resources, scarce resources. Remember, the first lesson of economics is scarcity. The first lesson of politics is to ignore the first lesson of economics. Thank you, Thomas Sowell, for that. Yes, mighty Megatron. Yes, nature dictates. The idea that men are universally oppressed by nature acting on us, and our wants and our needs are not the same things. And so there was a biological necessity for the relationships that put us together. And you could say now, today, perhaps there is no biological necessity for the type of relationships that existed in the past. Okay, sure, fine. Throw off those traditions if you wish, right? America is a free country, and women can do as they please. They can get married, not get married, traditional marriage, not have traditional marriage. I am not a conservative, and therefore I believe that relationships between consenting adults should be permitted and tolerated as you please. And if you don't wish to tolerate, of course, that's your free speech right as well, as long as we all can coexist in peace and harmony under the U.S. Constitution. He says, when some men feel entitled to women's attention, again, you're talking about like 13 and 14, 15, angry, horny, he's talking about incels here. Not the man who killed his sister. He's talking about completely different situation here, right? He hasn't even met them, right? And you have to meet them to be an expert. He says, when some men feel entitled to women's attention, but believe they're being denied it due to a rigged system, resentment builds. Well, if there are men who feel like that, they are wrong. Right. In terms of a rigged system for dating, it's always been rigged. The game has always been rigged. And the only men who, other than the most beautiful and talented, genetically gifted of us, other than most men, have always had to have a little bit of Captain Kirk in them. Right. We've always had to have a little bit of Bill Shatner in order for us to successfully get a date, get a girl to decide to hang out with us, even though, her instinct is telling her, oh, this guy might try and kill me. He might try and murder me. Right? He might hit me over the head with a large mammoth bone and drag me back to his cave. Some women are into that. But the thing about men in terms of being a rigged system, it's less rigged than it's ever been for men. Meaning that in terms of if the desire to reproduce, right, the desire to have children and to have kids, if that is the point of all of this, if that is, then the system has always been rigged. And when I say we need to pull a Captain Kirk, I'm really talking about pulling a Kobayashi Maru. Does everybody remember the story? Did you see the remake Star Trek's? The original remake that they made 20 years ago, fantastic movie. When they rebooted the Star Trek movies, they showed the scenario of the Kobayashi Maru, which Captain Kirk has to, essentially, he's being tricked by Spock into a no-win situation where he has to make a determination based on the best outcome, even though it is a no-win scenario. So what does Captain Kirk do? He, of course, cheats and goes outside of the system, which is what I would consider to be red pilling it, right? Goes outside the system, Kobayashi, we call it Kobayashi Maru, and decides that that is the way to win these days. And men have done this, right? And women don't like it. Women don't like most of the behavior that men engage in when men engage in behavior by themselves or when they engage in behavior with other men that does not include them. They don't care for it. Typically, this has been my experience, right? I have been there, so therefore I'm an expert. But Ankur Chawla says, while these groups grow and spread vitriol, women are using the internet to warn each other. Beware of the red pill guy. Oh, no. Beware, Ankur Chawla. He's warning us. He says resentment, when mixed with entitlement and dehumanization, becomes a risk factor for violence. Well then, sir, I ask you to clean up your own house. Remove the beam from your own eye before you remove the speck of dust from your neighbor's. Is that the New International Version? One feminist social media user who finally we hear from the ladies, other than Rebecca's own opinion, says one feminist social media user who dedicates her page to calling out male content creators spewing red pill ideology. Do mine. Recently captioned one of her clips, don't date or take relationship advice from some of these males. Okay. Which one should we listen to? Should we listen to the Coachella gender equality fighter? Is that who we need to listen to? She says, don't date or take relationship advice from these males. I read an article once on a Red Pill website. It was called it wasn't The Rational Male. It was, Return of Kings, I think, was the website. And the guy who wrote Return of Kings eventually became like a conservative Christian, and he renounced everything that he had written on this site. But back in 2013 or so, this website was really big. It was called Return of Kings. And there was an article there that to this day I still reference. And it's called Don't Help Your Guy Friends Who Have No Game. And it's because there really is it's really not helpful to you. It's going to harm your relationship as a man to help another man who doesn't have any game, because he won't believe you. He will blame you for his problems. And I've seen that has happened in real time. But I will tell you this, that if you see a man who has a healthy, successful relationship, and if that is really what you want, ask him questions. I'm always surprised. I'm shocked. Or maybe I shouldn't be, right? But it is surprising and shocking when sometimes I'll have conversations like on a random ski lift with a random young man. And some young men will complain about the dating situation, online dating with apps and Tinder and hookup culture, and how terrible things are with social media. And they're at the gym and they have to avoid women because they'll be shamed if they look at a woman who's wearing a nude colored top and bottom as they lean over and do this sexy pump right in front of the man. They're like, oh my God, don't look at me. Oh my God, right? Misogyny. Ma'am, I'm just trying to work out. It's like that meme from The Simpsons of Ned Flanders. And he's got the strippers up against him in the corner, right? And he's just like, no, right? We're all just trying, ladies, we're just trying to work out. But I talk to these young men and they identify these problems. Some of them will ask me questions. Some of them will actually say, and you know what? As I've gotten older and wiser, I'm learning. I could see the young ones, the younglings. I'll slam a youngling with a youngling. I'll kill younglings as we kill younglings. With any youngling who wants to talk about dating and marriage and what makes healthy, successful relationships, because I got one. And I had some toxic relationships. I've had my ups, I've had my downs, I've had my ins, I've had my outs, and I finally found the right one and settled down. And that had everything to do with the fact that I knew their tricks, Dewey. Did you grab my ass? Did you grab my ass, Dewey? I know your tricks, Dewey. But here's the thing. As men, as I was joking earlier, as men can be physically violent, women cannot be physically violent to get what they want. They can't be aggressive in the same way that men are aggressive. So when women have aggressive urges, or perhaps even a violent urge, some of them may be violent, perhaps, right? Lesbians in lesbian relationships, more so than others. Perhaps, if the data is true, and we're all talking about the data, right? After you used all these pejoratives, right? If we go back to the beginning of this article, it's like, here the data is showing. But what do women do? If men are more violent, and I will admit that, I will give that men are more violent than women, right? More physically violent overall. Then what do women do when they want to express power, right? Manipulate. Right, that's what they do. They manipulate. And the resentment that this author feels against the red pill community is that there are men like me out there, right, who are not like Andrew Tate's, who have healthy relationships, who consider ourselves to be red pill, that think that men need more male spaces where they can have conversations about things like this, not fewer. We need more men's spaces where you're not allowed, ladies. No offense, right? This show is gender neutral and could be whatever you want. And male, female, transgender, bisexual, trisexual, homo sapiens, carcinogens, hallucinogens, men, Pee Wee Herman, whatever you want here on the Wake Up America show. But there have to be some spaces for men. That's what the red pill community is. There have to be some spaces for men where men can go and gather and talk about things that make women uncomfortable, right? And you're not welcome. You're not welcome. Right? Just try telling a woman in your life, you are not welcome. You do not belong here. Right? I believe that biological men should not be allowed in women's locker rooms. And I also believe that biological women should not be allowed in men's, quote, locker rooms, unquote, if you get my drift. Pee Wee Herman. Most people don't have good examples of a positive and successful marriage, says Drake. Very true. They have their parents or TV and movie examples, which are usually not great. Very true. Barney Style says, but generally we teach boys to control themselves so they don't hurt girls. We don't teach girls the same thing. Very true. We do teach young men at a young age, don't hit girls because you can really hurt her because you are much stronger than her. There is no responsibility on the other side not to be manipulative and destroy people's lives by telling them egregious lies and, just on a whim saying everything that you do is wonderful and perfect and he's really the problem and you're totally not a psychopath, even though you display all the classic psychopath behaviors. We're going to speak to Ian Howarth here. It's 8:19 a.m. Central. Man, this show has really flown by, guys. Thank you so much to Joel Ledamore. I'm feeling like more and more close to Joel these days. He and I have been having some interesting conversations over on X. I know he's really going to enjoy this next conversation because I've been making some controversial posts over on X these days, especially in light of the Dave Smith, Douglas Murray, I guess you could call it a debate, over on Joe Rogan's show, because I've always liked a lot of what Douglas Murray had to say. Not everything. I mean, I'm not a neoconservative, but he has been a primary belligerent in the war against woke on the right. And so he's earned my respect for that reason. It's been, for me, an enlightening couple of weeks as I see just how rotten the American libertarian movement has become because it is divorced from reality. I think what happened was that after the Ron Paul campaigns ended, many libertarians became black-pilled and sort of just adopted a black-pilled mentality. Right? They just said it's anarchy. Let's accelerate. Let's let the West should fall. And they very strangely, ironically, became enemies of the only last bastion stand of liberty that there has been in this world, which is the United States. Well, now it's Argentina. Give it up for Javier Milei. We seem to be willing to hand over our rights. Hand over fist. It's that, you know what it is? It's that whichever party controls the government at that time, that party hands over all of our rights and liberties on our behalf over to the government because they've got a D after their name, and then the Republicans do the same thing when there's an R after their name. No, it's not. When our side does it, it's okay, right? No, I think the thing that makes me a philosophical libertarian and reluctant big R Republican is that I can look at both parties and say they're both screwing us. They're all destroying our rights and our liberties and our freedoms, just in different ways for different reasons. And the thing that makes America truly great, the thing that makes America truly special, damn it, is freedom. That's what really makes America different, is that we have freedom. I really think that the American libertarian movement, as opposed to the Argentine libertarian movement, that the American libertarian movement has lost the plot and gone astray. And I think it's that many of us have been duped by conspiracy theories after conspiracy theories after conspiracy theories, because I think that they look at the dreary reality of public government, of public life and governance, and they think, well, really, that is quite boring. And trust me, people who are real government officials, especially the ones who are really doing the Lord's work, trying to change things for the better, maybe they're a little bit more like you and I, more conservative or more libertarian, right? They will be the first to attest that it is not fun or interesting or exciting, really, to do the people's business. It is really not like because honestly, once you get in office, pretty much everybody hates you again, and that's, it doesn't matter what you do, you're wrong, and people crap all over you. Even if you are one of the very few good guys. I mean, look how Thomas Massey gets treated. Look how Rand Paul gets treated, right? They're doing some of the best work that there is, and yet look how they get treated. And by their own party, no less. Look how they get treated. So I think that the American libertarian movement has rotted in large part due to the obsession with foreign policy, which is fascinating because foreign policy is such a complicated topic, such an extremely dense, requires, thousands of years of knowledge of history on Romania, right, or Moldavia, and what it used to be, Istanbul, not Constantinople. And, well, you see in the Holy Roman Empire, and then it led to this, and then the Turks, and then the Ottomans, and the Ottomans would have never committed a genocide. I saw a meme this weekend, right? If only the Ottomans had taken over, then there wouldn't have been a genocide. Does anybody remember World War I? Ottomans? No, I guess the Turks would never commit a genocide. But these brain dead opinions that you have to hear, and it's the people are saying, and this is the thing that I'm hearing from libertarians, which is so stupid, is that Douglas Murray is trying to censor voices he wants to silence people that he disagrees with. No, idiot. That's not what Douglas Murray is trying to say. Here is a person who wants to silence voices that disagree with them.
2016. But I also think there are Americans who are engaged in this kind of propaganda. And whether they should be civilly or even in some cases criminally charged is something that would be a...
That is someone. Take note.
Deterrence, because...
That is what... Douglas Murray said nothing like that. And yet I have to hear endless nonsense from people who are the biggest simps and cucks for terrorist organizations or the Russian government or China, for example. Some of these people, they twist themselves into knots in order just to be contrarian, to be anti-US or to be anti-Israel. And in order to justify their stupid beliefs, they will suggest that what Douglas Murray said, that, maybe, it might be a good idea to have experts to discuss issues on which they have expertise, just like Joe Rogan wouldn't have a white belt Aikido practitioner who's taken 6 classes come in to give everyone a lecture breakdown on the history of martial arts, why Aikido is the most powerful martial art and can destroy all the other martial arts. They wouldn't do that. Frankly, I think Joe showed his cowardice in the interview with Douglas Murray because he had to bring someone in, a buddy, to try and argue against Douglas Murray's positions, because I think Joe knew that he would be outclassed by someone like Douglas Murray, and he was. I think Douglas Murray outclassed him. I take no pleasure. In calling out my fellow libertarians for their complete and total and utter retardation when it comes to the foreign policy in the United States and how they view the United States and Israel. It is not something I enjoy. I would rather be the person that tells you what you want to hear, throws out the red meat, right? Just makes the money and says and shut ups and just takes the grifty bucks from the backwards cap wearing, pro-Palestine libertarian movement, right? It would be for me would be much easier. But you watch the Wake Up America show, because I'm not going to lie to your ass. I'm going to tell you the truth as I see it, the best that I can. I don't know, maybe. I'm not an expert. I'm just asking questions. I haven't actually been there, so I don't really know. I'm not an expert, even though I'm going to talk about it now for the next 45 minutes with my buddy. Stupid kids always make fun of the smart kids.
Have you been there? Right, that's a good point. You haven't been? By the way, how is he in all these wars? Can I just go to wars? By the way, how are you allowed to just go to wars? Is that the way to,
you should at least
can you
have
just
the
go to
courtesy of going
Can I just go to wars, or do I have to come back and say what people want me to say about the wars? Can I go to the wars and have my own opinions, or do I have to have the opinions?
Not if you want to go back.
That's right. That's right. It's very interesting, this war tourism. How do I get on this war tourism?
Yeah.
I'd like to go to the Ukraine.
Well,
I
you
want to
should go.
I want to go. I want to go to all this war tourism.
Do you have any awards that they can melt down and make bullets out of?
Joe, think about this. Do I seem like a guy that has a lot of awards?
Didn't you get one of those YouTube
I love Tim Dillon. Love Tim Dillon. Yeah, you know, I don't understand the culture that says don't trust the experts and you know, question the experts. Right? Question the experts all you want. COVID-19 destroyed the whole trust the experts thing. I get it. That's fine. But trust the idiots? Trust the retards? Why can't we just be skeptical of everybody? Why can't we call out everybody to the mat? Why can't we actually have some concept of objective truth in this society? Why can't we actually do this, right? And again, here we are. It's the stupid kids, right? And they're making fun of the smart kids. Douglas Murray is one of the smart kids. And my next guest, Ian Howarth, he's got one of those British accents that'll cheese you off too. He's coming up next. Smart kids, and smart kids are gonna now make fun of the stupid kids. We'll be right back. It's the Wake Up America show on the 4 Liberty Network.
Are you tired of the strange radioactive effects of leftist culture? Do you ever wonder what happened to good old-fashioned American values? Well, fear no more, because there's a new force fighting back against the cultural rot of today. Introducing Culturama, a right-of-center talk show that's taking back the future today. Hosted by none other than blonde bombshell herself, Daniela Pensack. She's not just talking, she's taking culture back. With sharp takes, brilliant guests, and a few surprises along the way. Tune in to the live video podcast twice a week, because the future doesn't have to be weird. It can be Culturama.
If there wasn't going to be somebody who was a fiery champion of liberty, somebody who would get out there and who would be aggressive, and if they wouldn't do it with more fire or passion than I had, then I would go and I would fight this battle for us. I've fought for the principles that we all share. Parties tend to be secondary to me. We're here because we believe in the principles of liberty. I am not a perfect messenger, but I think I'm a damn good one. This is a replica of our first president's flintlock pistol. You have my full support, my respect, and my gun.
I think that the heart of my philosophy is much more libertarianism than well, that's the fashionable word these days, I guess. A conservative is no longer just that. He's a libertarian and always has been.
Yet any time you and I question the schemes of the do-gooders, we're denounced as being against their humanitarian goals. They say we're always against things, we're never for anything.
What is fascism? Fascism is private ownership, private enterprise, but total government control and regulation.
Well, the trouble with our liberal friends is not that they're ignorant. It's just that they know so much that isn't so. If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. This is the issue of this election. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
Like us do, who recognize this as a big problem on the left, but also
recognize the horrible stuff that's going on the right. I mean, you were on Joe Rogan a couple of days ago, a week ago, something like that. It got a lot of press. And I'm glad you said what you said, which is, I mean, I like Joe, but he has on people who entertain these crazy conspiracy theories and doesn't really push back on them. It's okay to have, I mean, I'm a free speech absolutist pretty much, but there seems to be no pushback on this. And of course, what's going on in this country, what we're going to probably be talking about here on the panel in a minute, this kind of encroaching fascism. I mean, I was using the term slow-moving coup before he got elected the first time.
Well, the right, clearly, I mean, it's always interesting to see what happens at the point of victory. What do you do with your victory? And if those people on the American right who are now in the ascendant, if they decide that they want to use their point of victory to, for instance, lie about the origins of the Russia-Ukraine war, or lie about the nature of Hamas, or lie about the state of Israel, or lie about history. I mean, the reason I did this pushback is, I mean, you just have to. I mean, you just have to, in my view. It's basic social hygiene. You've got somebody who's coming along who pretends to be a historian, who then can always do the thing of saying, oh, I actually don't call myself a historian. It's just other people I allow to call me a historian. Like I'm not a car mechanic, but if I kept on being introduced as a car mechanic, I would say, oh, no, you got the wrong guy. So they don't...
Compare that to this. Compare what he said there to this.
And boosting Trump back in 2016. But I also think there are Americans who are engaged in this kind of propaganda. And whether they should be civilly or even in some cases criminally charged is something that would be a better deterrence because...
Yeah, a little different there. Yeah. Douglas Murray, Hillary Clinton. Yeah, not the same. Welcome to the Wake Up America Show. Good morning. I'm your host, Austin Peterson. I'm glad and thankful to have you here. Click the like button if you haven't yet. We'd love to have you become a regular guest by clicking the follow button as well. We'd be glad to have you become a regular guest Mondays through Fridays, 7 to 9 a.m. Central Time on the Wake Up America Show. Well, a lot of the criticism that was directed at Douglas Murray had nothing to do with what he was saying about the conspiracy theories that the right has adopted in lieu of actual facts or objective truth or anything like that. A lot of the heat that was tossed at Douglas Murray was over his smarmy British accent. And I have to say, I happen to agree. So I brought in a guest who will explain to you insufferable Americans with his British accent why you must all go to jail for your opinions on podcasts. Joining us now live on this podcast, he's a syndicated columnist. I'm just kidding. Ian Howarth joins us live here this morning. Good morning, Ian. Welcome to the Wake Up America Show. As always, we appreciate your time.
Good morning, Austin. I feel like I've walked into a bit of a trap here. You had me on to talk about, tariffs or something, and oh, you've thrown this on me. How rude.
150% tariff on the UK now, Ian. But you are an American citizen now, right, Ian? You've become a naturalized citizen?
I'm in that process. I have a green card, so I'm a permanent resident, and in the very long and arduous process of becoming a citizen.
Great. Well, unlike some like Carl Benjamin and some of these other British like right-wing personalities that have come up, I've never heard you say that we need tyranny or that the United States needs to get rid of the Constitution, due process, or anything like that. So we'll allow you to stay. But I am getting very tired of hearing British opinions about how the West has fallen, and I'm kind of like, yeah, Australia, the UK, things have gotten pretty bad over there, but leave America alone. We're fine without any of the woke nonsense or any of the weird, strange monarchist BS that we have to hear. Nevertheless, I persisted. Ian, this Douglas Murray, Dave Smith, Joe Rogan thing, it kind of gets dumber and nastier the more it goes on. To me, it looks like the stupid kids mocking the smart kids. That's what I call it. How would you characterize it?
Yeah, I think I would have been a bit more nuanced, I think, until the Joe Rogan Tim Dillon clip was going around of them basically making fun of Douglas Murray's accent and calling it the Israel and the Hamas, the kind of the low IQ response to an actual pretty deep and nuanced debate. I think Joe Rogan is kind of showing his colors a bit more than he would perhaps like to, looking back on this in a couple of weeks or a couple of months. I think the fact that he had Douglas Murray on is great. I think the fact that he has Dave Smith on is great. It's good to get exposed to a variety of different opinions, regardless of whether you think that person is right or wrong, informed, uninformed, or misinformed. I don't think Dave Smith is particularly informed on this. I think he makes quite a few monumental presumptions that he builds his entire false argument on. But it's great they had that discussion, right? I think the problem is that more is coming out that Joe Rogan couldn't have Douglas Murray on his own, whereas he's quite happy to have Ian Carroll on his own or Daryl Cooper on his own and offer no pushback whatsoever. And then when Douglas Murray raises the important point, which is that this isn't about so-called experts or what experts have become. It's about expertise, and it's about knowledge, and it's about honesty and objectivity. And like the fact that Churchill, for example, is objectively not the chief villain of World War II. I don't care what mental gymnastics you play afterwards to try and justify that as, oh, I'm just being hyperbolic. But I also agree. You know, it's like people trying to ride two horses with one ass constantly. And so I think the response to this shows that maybe Joe Rogan isn't kind of the font of objective debate that he pretends to be. I think it's pretty bad taste mocking a previous guest over something so fundamentally irrelevant. And where was this a week ago? Why didn't he have quite the bravery to say this to Douglas Murray's face? And why did he have a conversation with Douglas Murray from behind Dave Smith too? I think it's all ridiculous. I think your analogy of kind of the bullies going after the smart kids to some extent is true, because it's incredibly easy to mock people. Like, it'd be very easy for you to make fun of me if I wasn't on the show, right? But it's like, it's a very different when someone is in the room with you or on a call with you face to face. Suddenly you have to be responsible for what you say. And so I think this is just to be very British, very bad form.
Okay, well, we'll allow it because you're in the process. But remember, your papers are not clear yet. And this administration does not take kindly to immigrants of any stripe, legal or illegal. I agree with your analysis here, Ian. The problem is that, you know, I am a libertarian and I'm not a neoconservative. And, you know, I have deep, profound disagreements with Douglas Murray when it comes to questions of foreign policy. And I would give pushback to Douglas Murray on some of the views that he's taken in the past. I think he's probably moderated them because I think most of the neoconservative worldview has been debunked following the disastrous campaigns in Afghanistan and Iraq. But unfortunately, because I think too many people engage in binary thinking, they think if we're not going to take the United States or Israel's side because we think they've done bad things over the previous decade, well, then we must therefore throw in with the opposite to them, which is sometimes China, Russia, many times Hamas, and some of it is trolling. And Douglas Murray, I think, nailed that in the Bill Maher segment when he continued on discussing, saying some of this is really just being, you know, knee-jerk contrarianism, for example, for contrarianism's sake, right? But it's the question of what you are watering, which plants you are watering, which will grow in the next generation. Again, another big giant part of this conversation. But Ian, I wonder if you would talk to me about your thoughts. I mean, I know you consider yourself to be a little bit more conservative, but do you think that on the right that the foreign policy has, the discussion centering around foreign policy has really gotten, I guess, I don't know, that the Republicans are on tilt? This is the statement we have in the United States, that I guess that it's gotten a little weird and a little bit crazy. We sort of have like the worst of us being the spokespeople for all of us in some ways.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, foreign policy is one of the things I focus on quite strongly because I think it's more important than people like to give it credit for. And I think in Trump's first term, I think his foreign policy was pretty strong. I think we had the non-interventionist kind of idea, but also with a display of strength where like we wouldn't screw around, we wouldn't let people push us around. I think that's actually quite a good combination of the two. But now what I'm seeing is I'm seeing an emergence of like the Tucker Carlson side, for example. The idea that the good guys are the bad guys and the bad guys are the good guys. And it's all about, as you say, contrarianism. It's all about going to Russia and fawning over their supermarkets and the price of rice in Russia when you have an American income and all those kind of things. And the idea that we can just reinvent Barack Obama's Iran deal, but because it's got the word Trump on it, suddenly that's something to celebrate. There's a lot of strange lack of thought, I think, going on where it's just whatever Trump does is good. And some of the things Trump does is good, and some of it is pretty bad. And so I think right now I'm seeing a combination of two things. I'm seeing the contrarianism, but I'm also just seeing chaos, where it's kind of just throwing spaghetti at the wall and seeing what sticks. I don't like chaos. Markets don't like chaos. Policy doesn't like chaos. Americans shouldn't like chaos. I think it's great for social media. It's great if you just love Trump and you like seeing people riled up. But it's not good for international, allegiances. It's not good for world peace. And nations like China see this as an opportunity. And so I would like, this isn't a call for me to go back to the time.
Have you ever been to China, though, Ian? How can you say that if you've never been to China? I'm sorry, but are you an expert, really?
I know. I mean, that's the thing. How do we judge expert these days? I've never been to a concentration camp where where a million Uyghurs are kept making the phones we enjoy. So I guess I can't speak on that either.
Well, I mean, I think, that may have been Douglas Murray's weakest point in that interview, perhaps in terms of, having been there. I mean, obviously, if you're a doctor, you don't need to have had cancer to be able to operate on it. Mm-hmm. But I do think that there's this weird double standard that people who are on the other side of the debate from Douglas Murray on this one are taking, which is to essentially argue that, that a person who has less experience, that their opinion is just as valid, right? And if you disagree, that you're trying to silence that opinion, right? I played a clip of Hillary Clinton saying people should be prosecuted for disinformation. No, Douglas Murray isn't saying that. You're not saying that. I'm not saying that, right? Hillary Clinton is saying that. But by calling someone who's stupid for having a stupid opinion, that's not trying to silence them, but they're trying to conflate that, because I think that people like, Joe and Dave, they really can't stand on the merits opinion. I debated Dave after October 7th on that one. He didn't know the most basic shit about stuff. I had never been there. He had never been there, right? We were both on level playing ground on that kind of stuff. But earlier you talked about the base presumptions and then building their whole world, building their whole warped worldview on it. This is like the clearest case of it, right? They have a false premise, and then their whole worldview is predicated on it. It's a house of cards.
Yes. Yeah. I think to some extent also people have been slightly mischaracterizing his point. This isn't to defend that point, because I don't think it was a particularly good one. But I think the point he was trying to make is that he was surprised that someone who showed such a level of interest hadn't taken the time to go. I don't think that means that you don't have a right to speak about something if you haven't gone. I think they were kind of talking past each other there. But I think it does point to a level of interest sometimes where people, as you say, lean very heavily into the I don't know enough about this. So to take the Darryl Cooper example, because that came up a lot during that conversation, I feel like more of their time was spent talking about Darryl Cooper than it was about Israel or Hamas. And he does this shtick where it's like, here I am just regurgitating David Irving and all these other books that he's just selected in the background to read. And he presents it in an entertaining way. And then other people who don't know what's true and what's false see that because it's entertaining and see it as true. And it's just this cycle where it expands and expands and expands. Like the fact that Joe Rogan was defending Darryl Cooper, who is objectively false on many things. He's sharing debunked history, like David Irving is a debunked Holocaust denier. And he's just defending Darryl Cooper because, we did 30 hours on a podcast about something. That is not expertise. You don't have to be an expert on, say, World War II to tell the truth.
Well, their argument
about World War II.
You're right. But the thing that they argue is that, and this is what Tim Dillon and Joe Rogan were sort of mocking, is that Douglas Murray only goes on propaganda tours, and they allege that the Israeli government is just showing them one side of the conflict. Mm-hmm. How do you respond to that?
I mean, I don't think I need to necessarily respond to that. I think Douglas Murray has been to a variety of different conflicts in the world, and he's been to both sides of borders and that kind of thing. But I also think it's the kind of arrogance and the elitism that they see in other people that Joe Rogan is spewing. Would he have that same reaction if, say, I, who have never engaged in any kind of MMA, I've done a couple of Krav Maga classes and that's it, I know absolutely nothing about, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. If I started mouthing off about that, do you think he would have me on and have me talk for 3 hours about all kinds of MMA? Probably not. I think he would school me. And so I think that's the thing, is that when it's something that he knows deep about, suddenly expertise matters. But when it's something that he would rather side with people like Dave Smith is the height of prowess on the anti-Israel argument that he can find in his circles, suddenly it's elitist if you have a different perspective. And it's also, let's not miss the really kind of conspiratorial nastiness going on here. That the assumption is that because Douglas Murray has gone to multiple war zones, not just Israel after October 7th, he's been to multiple war zones in the past, that must be proof that he's a shill. And the people who don't go, it's because they're not paid. Dave Smith is right because he hasn't gone to a war zone. You can argue whether or not Dave Smith is right or Douglas Murray is right without speaking about whether they've been here. But the level they're going to say that Dave Smith must be right because he isn't paid to go, and Douglas Smith only goes because he is paid, I think it's really disgusting.
I think it's just dumb. I mean, I probably agree with maybe 90% of my worldview with Dave Smith, but when it comes to things like foreign policy, I'm off the reservation because, I know you probably don't know a whole lot about the history of the libertarian movement, but a lot of this has come out of this anti-war institute, which is largely populated by red communists whose worldview is indistinguishable from that of Howard Zinn or the most woke leftist you could ever have. It's sort of that horseshoe theory where the left meets the extreme left meets the extreme right. And so I think unfortunately Dave has just sort of like taken on a bit of the mind virus from anti-war comm. That's where he's built all of these fundamentally flawed premises when it comes to American power and foreign policy and history. And there has been a lot of overlap with the paleo-conservative worldview with that of Pat Buchanan, who's written books and has been mentioned quite frequently, like Churchill, Hitler, and the Unnecessary War, arguing that it would have been better for the United States to team up with Germany to fight against Russia, et cetera, et cetera. Right? Again, I've read it twice, and I've never met Pat Buchanan. I'm not an expert, but I will say, after having read the book twice, that I can summarily dismiss these concepts because, of course, it's alternative history always requires these gigantic what ifs. And the problem with someone like a Daryl Cooper or something like is that it's always a what if. But the thing is that why not talk about objective facts and reality as they actually occurred? Like someone said yesterday, because the whole Trump card that like the Dave Smith libertarians always pull with foreign policy is always something like, oh, what do you think about the children? Oh, the children, right? It's always this call to emotion, right? I'm a good person because I'm anti-war. Well, no, I mean, you could be a complete piece of shit like these people at the festival were, who, in a sense, completely lacking any sense of irony. I saw over Coachella over the weekend that they decided to put an F Israel, Free Palestine sign at a music festival. Ian, forgive them, for they know not what they do. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. Well, your reaction to that little spicy event?
I think it's the ultimate indication of the double standard that is applied to Jews and only Jews, not just in America, in the West and the world. Because imagine if, for example, black Americans had been massacred on an American campus by white supremacists, and it was during a music festival. And then you had some kind of white supremacist slogan displayed during a music festival a couple of years later. Just imagine the response to that. I think the fact that this is Jews is there's just a blind spot for so many people through ignorance or malice or both. And this is the ultimate example of many examples of this. And I think I want to go back to quickly what you said about the anti-war stuff, because I think this is a really important detail here. It's the assumption of being right because you are anti-war, when everyone in this situation is anti-war. There is no one who is a serious mainstream person cheering on a war right now. No one. No one is cheering on the death of innocents on either side. No one is cheering the fact that there are Palestinian women and children who are going without food, going without resources. But that doesn't mean that the blame 100% falls on the people who are on the other side that you also despise, right? It's this fact that, oh, I'm anti-war, therefore you are pro-war. Like, no, I'm anti-war too. But we can disagree over the cause of the war and who is responsible in the moment. Like the analogy being used all the time is Dave Smith's ridiculous first-degree murder charge, that Israel is essentially committing first-degree murder by killing terrorists who are embedding themselves amongst civilians. I mean, that is just a moronic argument. Bill Burr made the same kind of argument. If someone's holding your child, you don't punch through them, you throw a right hook. This is the problem with comedians right now. It's not particularly funny, but it's also not true, because you also ignore the fact that they are actively firing at Israelis still. They haven't just run away and they're holding hostages and they're all just sitting around drinking tea. They are actively firing rockets at Israeli children. They're actually firing guns at Israelis. So what do? Joe Rogan, again, to go back to this example, he could beat the absolute living bleep out of me, right? He's been training in combat for years. If I attacked his family, God forbid, do you think he should stand back because he is way more equipped to fight than me?
He would just do, you know what he would do? He would do a targeted strike and he would perfectly execute, just like in the movies, and no child would be harmed because it's a perfect situation or scenario. It's utopianism is what it is. They think that there's some perfect world, or that there really are like bloodthirsty warmongers who really want to drink the blood of innocent children and all those kinds of things. Like, yeah, maybe the most extreme Hitlerites out there and stuff like that out there. Those aren't the people who are in charge, right? The people who are in charge are actively trying to bring an end to it. It's like Trump, he actively is trying, I believe, to bring an end to the conflict in Ukraine. And there's only one person in the fight between Zelensky and Trump, there's only one person who really doesn't want the war to end at this point, because the opportunity has been presented. But again, there's a lot of peeing on our legs and telling it's raining. And I mean, some of this, of course, is obviously ops, right? There's a lot of intelligence money that is flowing into right-wing influencers in the United States. We've already seen examples of that, of money coming from overseas into right-wing influencers' accounts, hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars. China's absolutely doing it. You know, there's a billion Muslims in this world. If you think that a few of them aren't rich and spending money here in the United States to influence opinions, then I've got a bridge to sell you here in mid-Missouri. But when you talk about like this concept of being pro-war, anti-war, I'm not anti-war. I'm not pro-war. I'm pro-winning a war if war is thrust upon me. But there's this strange hippy-dippy mentality, right? The same mindset of Coachella, which has infected the American right, which is this, it is tangentially connected to the woke mind virus, because it does blame ancestral problems on things. It like down the line, what James Lindsay might refer to as the woke right. And they adopt the same same fallacies in thinking that the left does. And so therefore they are typically indistinguishable, other than perhaps some differences on economics. But even that is becoming more skewed. We're getting towards the end of the interview, and one of our listeners, Joni Rankin, who I think really is a big fan of yours, she had a question for you that was unrelated to this topic. I hope you don't mind. She wanted to ask you about the long, arduous process to become a citizen, asking, do you think it could be easier, and will you be a dual citizen?
I will probably be a dual citizen for some period of time. I think I might consider changing that depending on what that involves. Because I do understand the concept of a dual citizen being something that I feel a little iffy about. I don't think it's really something that fits in line with what citizenship truly is. So I think that's a bridge I'm going to cross when it comes to it. Whether I think it should be easy or not, I'm actually in favor of making it difficult, because I think it should be something that is difficult. I don't think we should be handing out passports left, right, and center in the same way I don't think we should be handing out green cards or work visas. You know, I think coming here is a privilege that I think should be something that is difficult to achieve. And I think you do need to demonstrate that you are an addition to the country, rather than just, I'm here now, I should be a citizen. There's a lot of other countries that hand out citizenships like candy, and I think that usually blows up in your face. So it's for me personally, it's annoying because it takes time, it takes money, it takes effort. But I think as a general sense, if I'm taking my selfish desires out of it, I actually think it's good that it's arduous and difficult. I'm not a fan, for example, of the policy of you buy $5 million gold cards, green cards. I don't think that's a good thing. I think that's handing out things in return for money rather than ideology. I think ideology is what truly matters long term in the country. So yeah, the harder it can be, the better, honestly, I think. Honestly, that kind of surprised me. I'll say, pleasantly surprised. I think you made a really good argument there. Andy Opperman says, let's start a studio tornado bunker fund. Thank you, Andy. Yeah, yesterday we had a couple of tornadoes here. I don't know. Are you still in the Midwest, Ian? Or I think you were in Tennessee the last I remember, but have you moved? I'm in Nashville.
Oh,
so
good for you, bud.
We get a couple coming through, yeah.
Okay, good for you, man. I need to come out there and visit you. Last time I was out there, I gave a speech at Vanderbilt, and man, listen, I love some hot chicken, and I've had hot chicken in other places that purport to be Nashville hot chicken. But literally, Nashville is the only place you can really get the authentic, delicious Nashville hot chicken. So, Ian, I think we need to do a Wake Up America show out there on location, and maybe we just need to do some hot chicken reviews and claim to be experts for that, and we'll just take over that podcasting space. But you have to be there to understand the Nashville hot chicken. You can't just read about the hot chicken. Ian, tell us about what you're working on these days, and plug anything you'd like to plug before I let you go, brother.
Yeah, thanks always for having me. You can find me on all social media, IGHAWORTH. From there, you can find my Substack, links to all my articles, videos I put out. I'm also working on a book right now called Hitler's Heirs, and it's drawing a link from Adolf Hitler and Amin al-Husseini, who was the Grand Mufti of Jerusalem during World War II, and he was a direct Nazi collaborator, and how support for Nazis and adoration of Nazis has actually been a common thread throughout the modern Palestinian movement. So that's going to be coming out early next year, so just keep an eye out for that. We'll do that, Ian. And man, we're so grateful that you get up so early and take your time
share your thoughts with us, and we really appreciate it. I just really feel like you, Ian, especially, are really the man for the hour for the challenges that the United States, that the American right faces in the United States. So I just got nothing but respect, and I highly recommend people follow you over on X at IG How Earth. That's HAWORTH. How on Earth, Ian Howarth. Thanks, Ian. Have a great day.
Thanks, Austin.
There you go. Dual citizenship. That's an interesting question. I don't know how I feel about that, honestly. I haven't really formed a very strong opinion. I wonder what you guys think about that. Send us a text at 573-319-1586. That's 573-319-1586. Cliff Maloney and Remzo Martinez are supporting the Wake Up America show in a big way. If you're ready to take back control of our elections right at the local level, these are the men to talk to. I'm here to introduce to you their new project, Joe 1000. It's a bold initiative from the Citizens Alliance of Pennsylvania and the PA Chase program. Remember them bringing in Pennsylvania for us? Their mission is to elect 1,000 judges of elections across Pennsylvania in 2025 to ensure that the elections are run with integrity, transparency, and accountability. Right now, in precincts across the Commonwealth, write-in campaigns are underway for America First Patriots to run for judges of elections. That means with just 10 write-in votes, count them, 10, you can flip your precinct into a red stronghold. Step up, run. It's that simple. If you want to learn more, visit teamcap.com/Joe. That's teamcap.com/Joe to find out how to run, support a candidate, or to get involved. And if you're ready to help us to go all in on winning Pennsylvania again and build the red wall, head to pachase.com to support the ballot chasing efforts to keep the momentum going. This is your moment. Take action, step up, run for judge of elections. Help us secure the future of our republic one precinct at a time. Let's hear it for the PA Chase, Cliff Maloney, and all the good boys. Dad Bod Baboon, Luke Sacker, Quest Fanning, Amy J. Ease, Grizz Cheese, JJ4884, Joni Rankin, Quest Fanning, all of our friends. Take a look at Drew Runkle's face when I share with you this story about our sponsor, Meds Sites, that's helped keeping the Wake Up America show going strong at Meds Sites, MEDZ sites.com. If you believe in medical freedom like Drew Van Runkle does, you're going to want to check them out. This is a company that has helped people to take their own health back in their own hands. They offer real solutions for men's health, women's health, and viral care, all without the hassle of a prescription. No gatekeepers, as it ought to be. Just fast, secure, and discreet delivery right to your door. They've got everything from Mounjaro for sugar and weight loss to Sildenafil and Avanafil. If you're looking for a little extra energy to make your own sweet, smoking hot redheaded libertarian waifu happy in the romance department. They even carry ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine, azithromycin, doxycycline, and more, all trusted by people who know what it means to take responsibility for their own well-being. They're offering a 20% discount on the store, but because you're a friend of the show, I give you a 25% off your order. You get an extra 5% with the promo code AP4Liberty, 25% off your entire order. So if you support medical freedom and you want to support the show, head over to medsites.com, MEDZ sites.com. Show them some love for standing up with us and helping us to keep the liberty movement alive and well. Yes, Drew. Oh, yes. You're going to love it. Everybody knows we need to watch Drew Van Runkle over at medsites.com. Thanks so much, guys. Exit through the Grift Shop. We'll see you right back again here tomorrow on the Wake Up America show. That's on what? The 4 Liberty Network. Bye, guys. Are you an expert? Have you been there? To 4libertyshop.com. Tired of spending your hard-earned money on woke corporations that don't share your pro-freedom values? Fed up with sipping liberal lattes and progressive cappuccinos? Introducing Founding Flavors from AP4 Liberty Shop. Get your day started with Washington's Revolutionary Roast. As robust and principled as the man himself, this blend is the shot of energy heard round the world. Or maybe you want to taste the fervor of freedom with Adams's Patriotic Perk.
It's as dynamic and balanced as the U.S. Constitution, sure to awaken your spirit of liberty. For the aficionados, we've got the Jeffersonian Java, a complex mix of flavors that speaks volumes about your refined tastes. And don't forget Betsy's Liberty Lullaby, our decaf option, crafted with the same care and dedication Betsy Ross put into our Star-Spangled Banner. This blend lets you enjoy the taste of freedom anytime without losing sleep. No woke beans here, folks. Just pure, patriotic, pro-freedom flavors brewed with love for liberty. So why compromise your principles for a cup of coffee? Stand up for your values, perk up your patriotism, and start your day the American way. Get your founding flavors at apforlibertyshop.com.